Hey everyone, Tony D. Little Joan's asleep on the couch and she's on my nerves, so I'm going to let her sit there. This is my top 10 list of top 10 celebrities that I think are for the people. Meaning that I think they kind of try to speak for the actual feelings of the people. I think they're actually genuine in most of their political convictions. So this is my top 10 list. The top 10 list seems to do well, so I thought I'd do it. So first up, honorable mention, not on the top 10 list because his belief, Kurt Russell, is celebrities shouldn't speak their political opinions, and I agree with him. Celebrities have undue influence. I would say the only exception is a celebrity who has done his or her homework and is at least pretty knowledgeable on a subject before they're going to step up and speak about it. Too many celebrities use it as, hey, let me just do this because it'll be a good PR stunt. In fact, when I was doing a little research for this thing, I was coming after list after list of political celebrities, all left leaning, of course, 90% of them. And they had pictures of like Ted Danson getting zip tied at some protest in New York, and he's smiling like, hey, and it looked pathetic, in my opinion, because it just looked like a photo op for him. Now, maybe he has convictions, I don't know, but it seemed very much a photo op. And a lot of celebrities, I think, use celebrity as photo op, and it can hurt them. It can work. In the old days, it was always left, because conservatives had run things for so long. Socially, they were very stodgy. The celebrities tended not to be. And, there's some left leaning elements in Hollywood, thanks to the Soviet Union and various other factors. But, it was more about the social end and Vietnam than anything else. After Vietnam was over, there was still, gay rights. Civil rights was before that, but that was a thing. The issues kind of evaporated for the left. After gay rights, it was pretty much done. In terms of real important issues that the average person is pretty upset that things haven't been done. I wouldn't say the average person is, for most leftist agendas now. They're really sort of, maybe there's like 5 or 6 little things that could maybe be tweaked, but there's nothing major left. Gay rights was the last major issue. It was the last big hurdle. Like, okay, now you got gay rights, so mission accomplished. Time to wrap things up, but they didn't get the message. So I think Kurt Russell is right. It definitely can hurt your career. It definitely is something that's annoying when you see a rich person go into a protest that they can afford to be arrested, that they'll be treated with kid gloves, that they'll go in and And before I get to the list, some honorable mentions to like Martin Sheen, and these are people. I'm trying not to do it all right leaning, but obviously the right wingers now are more, they're more persecuted than anybody on the left. Anybody on the left gets like a free pass right now. So, but some of them have been pretty strong in their convictions. Martin Sheen, Susan Sarandon, Tim Robbins. You had guys like Marlon Brando was kind of active, fairly consistent. I don't know. Towards the end, he didn't seem to be very political. And you have a few others, and I'm sure I'm going to forget a bunch of them, but a lot of others just seem, it's all about a photo op. Amy Schumer just seems to me about a photo op. She got involved, and maybe she has strong convictions. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like they're that strong unless you're consistently doing it. Unless you're like either headed for the political arena. Oh, James Woods. I forgot James Woods. Even Dean Cain. So unless you're headed for the political arena, unless you're really consistent over a lot of years. Oh, Jane Fonda. Again, I don't agree with everybody on this list. I think, I think you're mainly doing it for your career. So let's go to number 10. I know this is an odd choice. This is Kid Rock. The reason I picked Kid Rock is he reminds me a little bit of the way Trump acts in terms of politics. It's very gut instinct. I think Kid Rock's audience instinctively are working class guys, So Kid is a Republican, a Trump supporter, and he's sort of in the trenches. He's for the people. He knows where his audience is. He's always sort of been there because I think he pretty much came up in that arena. And so he knows, you know, as opposed to a guy like Eminem who kind of is acting, to me, he's kind of betrayed his fan base almost the way he's acted over the last few years. Whereas Kid Rock, to me, has always been consistent. You may not think he's the smartest guy in the world or whatever. He can be kind of crass or whatever, but that's part of his image, and that's kind of part of his charm, really. So I put him as number 10. I think he's definitely like a people's kind of guy. I think if tomorrow, you know, the right-wingers took over and it became a fascist dictatorship, he'd have no problem switching sides and criticizing the Republicans. Cynthia Nixon, again, I don't agree with her politics, but the reason I put her on the list, and she's the star of Sex and the City, or one of them, is because she actually ran against Cuomo for governor. She also goes to other political rallies. She's very outspoken. I don't agree with a lot of her stuff, but I think she would have made a better governor than Cuomo, quite frankly, at this point. And that seems to be an indication she's willing to criticize her own side. She's willing to put her hat in the ring. Yeah, you could argue she's made her money or whatever, but it's very expensive to do a governor candidate. So I give her some credit. Number 8, Sean Penn. You got to give it to Sean Penn because, you know, the guy actually goes to Haiti and does work. He's actually done this a bunch of times over the years. He didn't do it in the beginning. He was kind of a knucklehead, kind of very much like your typical celebrity running around. But he's been involved in documentaries, and he seems to be relatively consistent in his views. Again, I disagree with a lot of them, but I do give him credit for the whole Haiti thing at the very least. He seems, and it might all be a show, I don't know, but he seems pretty long-term in it. He's been doing it enough years that you could say, yeah, he probably believes in something, probably has some principled issues. He's very much on the left, though. He's very much a Democrat. Number 7, Jon Stewart. Now, Jon Stewart's in an interesting position because he's always sort of been centrist, even though, I mean, he leans left, don't get me wrong. He's definitely a Democrat, but, you know, he's been willing to criticize his own side to some degree. Not enough, but to some degree. And the recent sort of red pilling with the whole Wuhan lab incident on the Colbert Show, and now he's being attacked, gives you an indication that he's kind of principled, at the very least, willing to tackle the truth, even at his own detriment. He was big supporter of the 9/11 responders, fought for them in Congress, and, you know, he kind of retired. And he didn't have to. I mean, coming off the Daily Show, he pretty much could have asked for anything. He built that show. Craig Kilborn before him, yeah, he'd done okay. I mean, it was just another Comedy Central show, but Jon Stewart delivered them Emmys and viewers, made it an institution that they're currently burning down. You know, I don't even think the Daily Show would be on the air if it wasn't for Jon Stewart. So he didn't have to just kind of semi-retire and do documentaries and speak out like this, especially on Colbert's show, where he could be more crazy and left, in my view. He seems to be for the people, and that's why I put him on the list. Number 6, Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston was, for those of you who don't know, a movie star. He was Moses. He was the guy from Planet of the Apes, a bunch of other things. He was very consistent with his right-leaning belief system. He was a huge advocate for guns. He's like, you know, the patron saint of the NRA. And, you know, he famously held up a gun over his head and said, "From my cold, dead hands." And, you know, he's gone now, but he was very consistent, I think, in his beliefs. And I think his support for gun rights was an indication of his support for the people, because it's very much an armed populace that keeps the government from going too far. You have no further to look than Australia to see, they just gave up their guns not too long ago. Look at where it's got them. Number 5, Rose McGowan. Now, I definitely don't agree with a lot of her political views. Some of them seem kind of nutty, but that was filtered through the media, so I don't totally trust that, and I don't really know a lot of her views outside the issues she obviously is passionate about. So she stood up against Weinstein. She's now left essentially the Democrats. She promoted Larry Elder. So I really got to hand it to her. She's making some strong strides here. She seems pretty consistent now. You might have said in the early days she was just another hot starlet windbag, but she's got a lot of strength in that she's been able to overcome, Weinstein did some pretty horrible things, it sounds like to me. So, you got to give her credit. Weinstein had ex-Mossad agents following her, apparently. That's pretty intense. So, you got to hand it to her. She fought through it, and I think what she's doing is good, generally speaking. She's willing to see the truth. I mean, she was willing to see the truth in the Gavin Newsom recall, certainly. So I got to give her props. Number 4, Lawrence Fox. Now, you may not know him because he's a UK celebrity. He's an actor. But he was a guy they tried to cancel him on a UK show. And he's kind of a funny actor. I think he was a comedian, too. And then he ran for mayor of London. He lost, but, he ran against one of these globalist, internationalist mayors that just keeps, opening the doors to more immigrants in a city that's really got some problems with knife crime, believe it or not. So he put his money where his mouth is. He's very outspoken. He's very much against cancel culture. Very much more. He was a member of the and founder of the Reclaim Party, and he's really trying to reclaim, kind of the old ways. He's not. I don't know if you'd call him conservative. I don't know if you can call anybody in the UK conservative, really, but he is definitely very passionate and well-spoken. There are other UK celebrities, I'm sure, but this is the one I know about because he's pretty high profile. Number 3, Bill Maher. My old boss, Bill Maher. I got to give it to Bill, right? Again, I wouldn't agree with all his positions, but these days, more and more, he seems more red-pilled and getting closer and closer to mine. His recent outspokenness is nothing new for Bill. He's said some crazy things over the years and got in big trouble for it, but he's always survived. And I think he's always instinctively understood that it's about the audience. It's about, it doesn't do you any good to pump the narrative. That doesn't get you any hits. It doesn't get you any fans. Anybody can stand up and say, I believe we're doing just fine. Supporting the status quo is not something that is for the people, unless the status quo is amazing, which it's not. Currently, it's just in the toilet. And Bill Maher has definitely been instrumental in calling out the left, and they've attacked him mercilessly for it, and he survived it. That alone, you should give him props for that. He calls himself a libertarian a lot of times. He's not really a libertarian. He's more of a liberal with libertarian leanings, or more of a classic liberal, I guess you'd call him. But I got to hand it to him. He's been relatively consistent in his belief systems. I kind of regret the stuff I used to say about him before I even worked for him. I said, "Oh man, why did he get politically incorrect and not Dennis Miller? Dennis Miller seems so much more well-read and smarter." And then over the years, I think he's really gotten better at what he does. I think he's really had an interesting learning curve, especially since his days of trying to do movies. On Politically Incorrect, he didn't seem all that well informed, but by the end of it, he kind of was, and he got better and better as the years dragged on. Even though he said some stuff that I really disagree with. So, props to him. Number 2, of course, Nicki Minaj. And I don't have to say much about this because this is all in the news right now. But Nicki Minaj has just sort of come out of nowhere. And she does not give an F. So I thought she would fold by now. I think if she was going to fold and apologize, that would have already happened. And now they've threatened her family. The Yellow Flash just did a video about her. And basically a reporter called her up or texted her and said, why don't you sit down and do an interview with me and your family? If you don't, CNN will probably dox your family, is what it was this sort of implied threat, like, well, if you don't do the interview with me, I know CNN's going to get you, which is just horrific. And and these guys in the journalism class now are just such scumbags. When I was a kid, journalism was this high and mighty thing you aspire to. It was noble, and now they're just scumbags, and they use the words that used to be noble, like, well, I'll protect you, I won't tell anybody. Now they use it as a threat. Well, good, you can come with me and we'll do the interview and we'll protect you, but if not, no, you got no protection. I mean, that's kind of a threat. So big kudos to her for standing up and not even taking that strong of a stance, really. She just questioned the vaccine, was just talking about her cousin. I mean, you could have, the media is so stupid sometimes. They could have ignored this and it would have blown over. It would have been like, well, who cares what Nicki Minaj and her fans say? Even though it's like 20 million people worldwide or more, even though it's a lot more people than ever watch CNN or any of these other news channels, which I guess is why they so attack her, because you now have 20 million Nicki Minaj fans, mostly, not that they're a monolith or anything, starting to question, well, hey, yeah, maybe I can question the vaccine. Maybe I can talk about this in public. And, there's evidence of this because of the protest outside the CDC in Atlanta. Now, Atlanta's a very high population, African-American city. Nicki Minaj obviously has a lot of African-American fans. She's black. She's a rapper. So, I mean, that's huge. That's a huge anti-establishment stance. And they are coming at her hard. The Yellow Flash went through some of the articles. They're coming after her, really threatening to dox her family. They had some negative article, I think, about her husband and her. And, it's like and that was from the Mary Sue, and a magazine devoted to women attacking another woman. So you go against the establishment, they have no mercy. But finally, the guy I think is the top of all celebrities in terms of the people's celebrity is Johnny Rotten. And I got to hand it to him. Now, Johnny has always been anti-establishment. Like back in the day, he was just a crazy maniac, was spitting on his audience and screaming like a maniac. He's just the best. And when he came out, first he came out pro-Brexit. This was, I'm sure there's been other issues, but he says he's always been for the people. He was on Good Morning Britain, and he basically said, I'm for Brexit because the people wanted Brexit. And that was like, again, it was like sort of a gut instinct Trump level, well, the people wanted that, so I'm for that too. That's amazing, right? And actually, I guess I should have put Trump on this list too. But he kind of doesn't count because now he's a politician and an ex-president, and he'd be too obvious anyway. But, the fact that he did that and you have to understand, Brexit was almost their version of Trump, right? He was the equivalent of Trump. Only, lowbrow Republican pinheads supported Brexit, but all the smart people supported Remain, and they lost the vote. Every media company was coming out, you gotta vote against Brexit, you gotta vote against it, and it won, and the Brits have left and they're better off for it. And Johnny just sort of instinctively understood that's what the people wanted, that's what's going to be better for the world and the UK. Then he comes out for Trump, and I was just, whoa, mind blown. I didn't think he'd be that based, and he really is. He understands, like, yeah, I'm for Trump, of course I'm for Trump. Like, he's the guy doing the stuff we want. Like, how come you don't see it? And that's sort of my attitude about Trump now. It's like, at first I was like, I don't know, what's Trump really going to do? I was definitely not going to vote for Hillary. I ended up voting for Gary Johnson. But I said to Trump, like, I don't know. That's like, how good could he be? And as Razorfist said in one of his videos, it turns out the asshat is really good at being president. And once you saw Trump in action, I don't know how you could vote against him ever again. He did an amazing job for a modern day president. And Johnny instinctively understands that. He understands I think how Trump is more for the little guy, even though he's been rich all his life, he just sort of instinctually knows what side you should be on. You should be on the side for the people. You should be doing the people's work, especially if you're a high profile celebrity. This is, with great power comes great responsibility. And these people, mostly on this list, and I'm sure there are more I'm forgetting. I almost forgot to put Bill Maher on the list. For better or for worse, are doing what they perceive as for the people work. They're using their celebrity to try to help in a way that I think is generally positive, even though I don't agree with all the politics, even though some of the politics on this list would obviously contradict each other. But I got to really hand it to Johnny, and because he's still a pretty big celebrity in the UK. I mean, he became, after the Sex Pistols, he was kind of like the crazy guy you'd invite on a TV show just to have a crazy guy around. And he still did music. He was in Public Image Limited, which I think he founded, and I think he says currently. So I guess they're doing some more albums still. And he doesn't have a problem saying what he believes. And he's very much a UK guy. Like, you don't really see him over here. So good for him. Good for most of the people on this list. And I think, they're doing closer to what I would like to see celebrities do if they're going to use their politics for anything. They should use it for good. They should use it for the people. But it's important to be able to gauge who the enemy is. And who the enemy is always the establishment. It's going to be the people who are ensconced in power, and they're using that power to leverage it against everybody else unfairly. And there are some people that just don't do that. I think Trump, he just doesn't, I think he's done it on a smaller scale in his business practices, possibly. Now I have to question everything when you talk about Trump, even reports I saw back in the 80s. Maybe they just hated him back then, too. But it seems to me that these celebrities, deserve a little more leeway, because at least they seem to be for the people. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed it. Check me out on Bitchute and Rumble. Little Joan should be there. We'll see you. In the next one.